All right, we'll let everybody filter in. I'll just start by introducing myself. So I'm Luigi DeMeo, head of DeFi at Avalanche. Welcome everybody. I hope you're having a good time at the conference so far. We should probably give a round of applause to everybody who's worked hard to kind of put this together. But yeah, we have a great panel here today. I'm substituting a little bit, so we'll do it live. But yeah, why don't we just start by doing introductions? You don't have a mic, so Julien, why don't you kick it off? Introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, so hey guys, my name is Julien Bouteloup. I've been in the space for quite some time. I'm a founder of StakeDAO, Blackpool, and Rect.News. Also involved in Curve Finance. And I've been playing a lot on Avalanche, on the investment side with the fund and the quant, Stake Capital. And yeah, we've been pretty active in arbitraging and also building different strategies on Avalanche.
Hi guys, my name is Annabelle Huang. I'm a managing partner at Amber Group. Amber Group is a global crypto finance service platform servicing both institutional and individual users who are looking to trade or manage or earn in crypto. We're about more than 800 people now globally, managing about $5 billion in trading capital, and also investing pretty actively across the different layer one ecosystems, Avalanche being one of them. And before Amber, I was actually with AirSwap, one of the early DeFi projects, and I think also know a lot of the Avalanche people from there as well. So very happy to see that everyone is still very actively building in this space. So.
Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa Grellet. I'm the head of portfolio growth at CoinFund. We're a multi-strategy fund that has been investing in Web3 since 2015. We also have a liquid fund, and prior to joining CoinFund, I have been in the space for a while. I was working at Consensus for 5 years, so have seen the playbook of how to grow an ecosystem, and I'm pretty excited about how Avalanche is making their strategy around that.
Hey guys. My name is Jeff Kuan. I lead BD at Terraform Labs. TFL, we build decentralized stablecoins and are making a big push onto the Avalanche ecosystem. And so, we love AVAX projects, and hence why we're here.
Cool. So, since this is a panel primarily focused on DeFi, one of the things that I've kind of noticed lately is that innovation in DeFi sort of slowed down a little bit over the last few months. So, one of the things that I kind of wanted to discuss here first was what have we seen sort of in the last few months kind of that has slowed down, and where do you expect things to kind of pick up, and where the innovation will come from next in the future? Julien, let me kick it to you. You're the DeFi builder here, so. Where's the innovation coming from in DeFi? What's next?
Well, I think it's following exactly the same path as traditional finance. As we're seeing more maturity in the in DeFi space, we're getting more complex products, and I'm very into derivatives, so futures and options. I think it's like concept that we're not familiar with most of people back then, but now we're seeing more and more projects. We have an options project. We're dealing with something like 500, half a billion nominal value per month on options being sold to market makers. So that's the trend that we're trying to focus on, really traditional products, and trying to explain them correctly to the retail, so retail can profit from those very complex products. Where I don't think people understand, but those products in traditional finance, they're only accessible to very wealthy people. Well, now with DeFi, you can access those very, very complex products where you have the entire supply chain built for you, and you can use them. It never happened before, and I think this is pretty fascinating for me.
Yeah, so kind of bringing traditional products to DeFi and making that more accessible, I think that's a natural progression of DeFi. From the market maker perspective, right, and kind of putting capital into these DeFi ecosystems, are you seeing or kind of have you experienced more challenges as it relates to playing in DeFi versus, kind of what's more consistent in traditional finance?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the DeFi protocols right now again, it's appealing to the more crypto native crowd. It's so really difficult for maybe the more average daily consumers or to use from a UI UX perspective. Then from a more regulatory perspective, a lot of our traditional finance clients cannot directly access it yet. And we, Amber Groups, try to stand in the middle to bridge that. But I think on the other front, right, what Julien's saying, that a lot of the more derivatives type products being built on different layer ones, and that's fascinating. And I think that probably will also bootstrap the spot liquidity in a lot of the DeFi space. And that's what we've seen in traditional finance and potentially what we see here as well. And we are actively either investing or being a market maker, liquidity provider to some of the vaults and being one of the first to try out, right? I think that we need a lot of people to really test out the different mechanism, and also to supply liquidity for it to really become more mainstream, maybe to funnel down to retail or maybe other participants.
What about like kind of real world assets like being brought onto DeFi? What do you guys think about kind of, I know there's been efforts from Centrifuge and Maple and others who have kind of tried to bring these, you know, real world assets to lending and things like that. But how do you see that kind of materializing going forward? Are we going to be able to put, you know, mortgages and various assets on chain and be able to leverage DeFi?
So I think that's an idea that everyone had since the beginning and that has not come to fruition yet. And I think it's going to take a few more years in order for us to have this mature mechanisms where you can, you know, you can mirror real world assets and trade them. However, I've seen some projects that are focused on indices that could be the bridge to that, that real world asset exposure. I think there are some regulatory challenges. I think that the first perspective was to look at, you know, security tokens, and that we see that that's not the way to go. It's not the right way to represent these real-world assets. So I think there's opportunities, but it's going to take a little bit. I mean, in my view, it's going to take a while.
And I can follow up there. I think there's probably like two ways that you can grow in DeFi, right? One is like product innovation, so similar to what Julien's saying, right? There's like a lot of kind of new interesting like technologies that are coming out, but you know, we've seen it slow down a little bit. I think the other way is distribution, right? So, you know, getting new real assets, I think it's just a way to grow the pie. I think what we really need to focus on in DeFi right now is, you know, bringing on the next like 10 million, billion users. I don't think we can keep creating new kind of like tokenomic type Ponzi's or like food coins in order to attract people from different layer ones. I think we need to think outwards. So I think,
so no more PvP.
Sorry?
No more PvP.
No more.
Player versus players. Yeah, we need to grow the pie. That's right. You know, I think that's a nice segue. You guys are building, you know, you guys are actively working on a stablecoin, decentralized one. So that's obviously a mass adoption type product, right? That's what you're focused on, getting that in the hands of many people. What is like sort of, you know, as you think about the strategy going forward in order to get that adopted, you know, by retail in a mass way? What are you guys thinking about the best ways to bring people Web3 in that scenario?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of different use cases that are pretty interesting for onboarding normal people. I think one of the strategies that we've been focused a lot on Terra is creating applications and, you know, working with third-party teams that can, you know, obfuscate or you know, target real-world people, but not make it obvious that, you know, they're interacting with blockchain products on the back end, right? So there's a lot of like retail-like products, like a, you know, Venmo-type product that, you know, it's coming out on the Terra blockchain, which I think is really interesting. And then I think the other angle is, you know, gaming, which I think people on Avalanche are very familiar with, but you know, I think there's a lot of overlap between gamers and people that, you know, would be interested in crypto, and I think, you know, onboarding people in that way is probably where the next million users will be coming from.
And just to add to this, so you have the gaming, you have the NFTs, but you also have the large institutions. And I think, you know, there's so much assets that we can bring into DeFi. So there's the regulatory aspect that needs to be, you know, dealt with in order for them to trade in these sort of regulated pools. But there's also risk management tools and insurance. And if I were an entrepreneur right now, this is what I would, you know, look at as applications that can bridge all the L1s that can be used anywhere in order to risk manage all the exposures and the liquidations. And I think once that comes in, you'll have mainstream adoptions with the institutions.
Yeah, and I would just say that stable coins, I guess now is more of the regulated stable coins are what we see as the gateway for a lot of the family offices or the traditional institutions to come into crypto. I think they're interested in earning the yield pickup that we see in crypto market versus what they see in the fiat world, but they're not comfortable being exposed to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other token price volatility yet. So they dip their toe in through stable coins, and that demand alone is huge. And then later on, they discover the fun of Web3 world and start either starting DeFi yield farming with other maybe decentralized stable coins, and also starting to buy other tokens and having their risk tolerance slightly higher. So I think it needs to be there, right, to get the capital in, and then they'll start to experiment with a lot more. And then, on the regulatory side, and I think that's also going to take some time before things change. But in the meantime, we probably need a lot of the middle layer solutions for that to happen.
I think, like, generally speaking, we have a lot of the primitives as it relates to DeFi. Like, we have options protocols, stable coins, like perp exchanges and stuff like that. Julien, you built half these things by now. So are there any actual primitives missing in DeFi right now, like actual building blocks where people could build on top of that we just don't have yet, and that will open up like potentially new avenues that other builders can leverage?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Like, whatever is being built in DeFi, we call it innovation in the sense that the technology and the blockchain it's an innovative technology, but I think that most of the concepts that we're currently using are not new at all. They come from traditional finance. Even stablecoin, they're innovative because they can be accessible by anyone and used by more people, but the concept of money and being able to print money, we have big player in the US, they know pretty well how to print money. So my point is, like, in those concepts, those new tools, for now we've been using exactly the same, the traditional finance, and I'm very looking forward to see new concept. It can be like swaps, like also like emerging between like real estate, physical assets, like for example bonds, debts, like national stuff that can be actually brought into blockchain. Right now, I think most of the innovative technology that we've been using so far are auto market maker. I think this was pretty cool compared to traditional finance, where you have market making and you have actors that are responsible for making sure that the spread is minimum, for making sure people can actually trade. I think this feature really completely changed our space. But new features, I think that the coming new piece of innovation will be across how we communicate across all those different blockchains, bridges, and removing the concept of blockchain. I think it's a little bit paradoxical, but coming back to the discussion that you were having before, like bringing billions of users, I don't think this is us going to bring billions of users. I think there's application that we're currently using, for example, like TikTok, Messenger, WhatsApp, all those different applications, we'll be using them without knowing there's a token behind it that's powering the application. And this is really when billions of users will jump in. But if we look at today, we have millions of builders and probably like the same amount of users. So it's not about scaling the number of builders that will scale the number of adopters. I really believe the adoptions will come by those institutions application that will use blockchain and tokens without telling users that it's powered by blockchain and tokens. This is really what will have the shift. And then new conferences, we'll attend new conference, people will not talk about tokens. They will talk about true utility of their project. It will be a completely new shift, I think.
Yeah, I think, that really jives kind of the way I view the space as well. I think we're moving more and more, and I know a lot of people don't really like this, but it's going to feel a lot more like Web 2 as we kind of advance, right? We're going to go backwards, right? but in a way that we still were able to digitize assets and actually move value, where we weren't really able to do that before on the internet. So I think that'll kind of be the major shift. But you touched on something interesting as well, which is sort of this multi-blockchain world, right? You know, we're here for the Avalanche Summit. We're one blockchain. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of good technology.
Good one.
What's that?
A good one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think so. But you know, how do we view this world? Like, will the user ever actually know what blockchain they're interacting with? Will they care? Will the builder care? Kind of, how do you guys think about it? You know, Jeff, you literally operate another blockchain, so why don't you, you know, kind of, how do you guys think about the cross-chain world and how users will be able to move across it?
Yeah, so I think a good mental model that we use to think about multi-chain is different blockchains as countries, where, you know, there will be certain use cases that are specific to different blockchains. So, you know, on Avalanche, you'll have your use cases. On Terra, we'll have ours. And I think users will go to the blockchains that, you know, support their use case the best. I don't think that we need to be like super competitive here. I think that you know, the multi-chain world will exist, and at Terra we're focused on making sure that you know, our stablecoins can be, you know, widely used on whatever blockchain that users want to use them on. And I don't think that users will necessarily have a preference. I think they'll go to the venue that is easiest for them.
Yeah, if I could just also jump in, I think it's a great question, right? Would users care what blockchain or I don't think so, and I think it's our goal, our role here to bring the Web2 experience onto the Web3 infrastructure. And I think users should be sort of agnostic, but they should care about user experience. And Web2 experience is good, right? A lot of us spend hours on a lot of the social media platforms. And you shouldn't tell them that, okay, everything you see is going to be in a pixelated 2D world all of a sudden if you want to use Web3 or super hard to use. That shouldn't be the ask, but I do think we need a lot more builders to make that Web2 experience possible on Web3. That's people building from the wall infrastructure, cross-chain, the assets available to trade either crypto or NFT or other things. So hopefully we're not too long away from there.
That's what I call the layer 3. Layer 3 is you use the application, you don't know there's blockchain, you don't know there's a token, but the application choose the best path. So we'll be using the best blockchain for that specific use case, as you mentioned. And I think it will happen. And when this happens, this will be the true adoptions. Like people worldwide using blockchain without knowing it's blockchain. It's like the same today. We usually say you use internet, you don't know like HTTP, you use email, SMTP, like all these different protocols. Blockchain is a protocol. Tokens are a piece of the protocol in order for you to power your application. So at the end of the day, the user shouldn't be aware of which technology is being used behind the hood.
Yeah, I'm also going to be a little bit of a buzzkill right now and kind of shift this over. You know, we've been sort of working you know, in terms of institutional adoption and this institutional DeFi subnet that we've talked about. And what that basically is sort of a KYC form of another chain that actually has DeFi applications deployed on it. So all the applications that, you know, either some of us here power and build, or that you know and love and use, will be able to be used on another chain on a subnet that, you know, every interaction in that subnet will happen from a KYC wallet. So that's something that's you know, naturally a very touchy subject in DeFi and crypto. And I kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts on how do you view the landscape as it relates to KYC in Web3? And do you think there's a future where that doesn't happen?
So regulation is a centralization factor, whether it's, you know, in traditional finance, you see, you know, companies needing to merge and have larger institutions to face just the compliance requirements that they need to face. And I think we'll see the same thing with regulation if we want to give, it's coming, it's here. Like, we're not going to deny that, you know, you're going to have to KYC and AML some of the products. The question is to which extent, whether it's individuals or institutions. For some institutions, it's just a no-go to not have a KYC pool. So you have a lot of funds and more agile vehicles that can invest in DeFi. But if you're a really large institution and you have to deploy, the risk management and the KYC is a non-starter. So we'll just have to face that reality and make sure that whatever happens, everyone who wants to have another option, that option is still available, and that we're not in a world where everything needs to be KYC'd. And I think the beauty of those decentralized protocols is that they should be able to exist by themselves, and then you have more regulatory interface that centralized entity can give access to.
Yeah, and I guess on our side, we
Nah, no
deal with.
Something else, please.
Yeah, well, you can add on. I was just going to say that because we deal with both the crypto native crowd as well as the traditional finance crowd. So KYC, ML, all of this regulatory setup is what we talk about on a daily. And we are seeing some of the projects actually building sort of decentralized ID that helps with it. Maybe they can use sort of a zero knowledge proof that can show that you have been KYC by some trusted entity, and that you can go ahead to interact with the DeFi protocols in a still decentralized way. So like Vanessa said, right, there's definitely a layer that needs to be centralized because regulation itself is centralized, but hopefully you can still have most part of it being decentralized. And what we've done so far is actually a lot of times the traditional funds have to face us, where we then go interact with the decentralized protocols directly because they have some mandates or hurdles not to. But I think a lot of them are already start to see that stopping them from doing a lot of the business or accessing the DeFi world directly. So I think maybe on their side, they're also pushing for their own legal counsel to change. We have to do a little bit of that too. We're being audited, but and then we have to push our auditors to understand what it means to actually have a DAO as a client, but it's not really an entity or there's no person, right? So I think we still need some time, but people are definitely looking at this.
And then just kind of like to shift a little bit, and I want to leave a little bit of time for questions as well. A lot of people always say that UX in DeFi really sucks. So, how far are we, and what are the actual changes that are going to happen to actually, make that a better experience? We announced the core wallet yesterday. That we obviously have views on that. But Julien, kind of like, how do you think this is going to evolve, like from the user experience point of view? Like right now, there's this MetaMask and your seed phrase. How do we kind of see this playing out, where it's actually going to be to a point where mass adoption could be comfortable?
Yeah, I believe like mobile provider, Apple, Samsung, and all those big guys, they will have a native enclave. So I think there will be a big shift for wallets. Wallets will be natively integrated with the mobile phone. So when you use Web3 or like even using like Mac or any laptop, you will have this integration naturally inside your hardware. So basically, using Web3 will be the same as using a Web2 because the wallet and the user profile of your activity will be natively integrated with the piece of hardware that you're using. So there's no more question. I mean, if you really look into 2015, which is like 5 or 6 years ago, well, look at the UI and UX. Like this really sucks. But today, if you look at today, within 5 years, the tremendous amount of work that has been done in the UI and UX is like enormous. Now you have like multiple different wallets. You can, before you have a way to exchange tokens, to buy tokens, you had to use a centralized exchange like Kraken, like Shapeshift. Yeah, back then Shapeshift and Trader Delta. Try to use this platform. Like it's really complicated. Well, if now you're facing issues or you're really struggling to use a Ledger wallet, well, 5 years ago was barely impossible. So within 5 years, the industry and this ecosystem really grow up like rapidly. So in 5 years' time, I think we'll not talk about UI and UX, not even like 5 years, maybe like 1 or 2 years, because those big players, like I think Apple, Samsung, all those big guys, they will naturally give you a wallet. So I think the question will be more about why should I maintain a wallet technology if those guys are already providing wallet technology, and then that's it. It's game over.
This is one of my favorite questions. So I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, give them feedback on the UX, UI, and I think, as Julien says, 5 years ago was incomprehensible for a normal person. But I think it was because you were developing products for developers in order for them to build on protocols. And so we were at that stage where, developers understood developers, but now, the products interface like real people. and then also the finance crowd. So there's the comfort zone of people trading in finance, and there's that specific UX UI that they need. And then there's the retail experience that Julien was talking about. So I think we're pretty far from an acceptable user experience in order to trade seamlessly, to engage seamlessly with NFTs, et cetera. And I think it comes fundamentally from not the flaw, but the idea that you own your keys, you own your wallet, and everything needs to come from the wallet. And so the user experience was created by the wallet and not by, just a simple user interface or an app. So we need to switch that and see that the wallet can be so much more than the wallet. It could have so many more functionalities. It could be a bank on your, on your phone, but it could also be an art gallery. It could also be your access to the metaverse. So I encourage everyone to think creatively about this and change your perspective and reverse the assumptions that you have when you're creating a product.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then a lot more value is going to accrue to the wallets versus the applications. But we have a few minutes here. Wanted to leave some time for questions if anybody had any. Happy to, be the chauffeur and pass around the mic. Does anybody have any questions? Everybody still tired? Okay.
What is something that doesn't exist yet in Avalanche regarding DeFi that you guys would like to see?
Yeah, so
Decentralized stablecoin?
yeah, a lot of the stablecoins on Avalanche right now are fiat backed, which is one category of stablecoin that should exist. But we've obviously seen that there's a large hole for decentralized stablecoins, and I think what we've seen on other layer ones is that there's actually a very strong appetite for decentralized stablecoins. I think good examples of this are projects like Curve and Saber on Solana, where decentralized stablecoin pools are among the largest in terms of TVL and volume, and I feel that there just is a large opportunity for a decentralized stablecoin, either native or brought across from a different ecosystem, to be successful. So, slightly biased answer, but I think that's where the largest opportunity is.
Well, since we're on the topic, though, why don't you talk a little bit about kind of what UST has done the last few weeks on Avalanche? Like, I think it's becoming more available. What are some things people could do with it?
Yeah, so I think the main thing is last week we brought over Anchor, and so users can now get a native experience by depositing and borrowing against the Anchor protocol, and get access to the native 19.5% yield. And so there's a number of protocols that are native to Terra now that are looking at cross-chain strategies, and Avalanche will be kind of the first home for a lot of these protocols. And I don't think it's only happening to Terra protocols. I think protocols on every layer one are now looking at Avalanche. And so I think there is like a pretty big opportunity for protocols that are looking to be on the receiving end of a lot of these assets, and to be kind of a bridge between protocols that are looking to come into the Avalanche ecosystem, and kind of bridging that gap.
That's why I opened it up for questions.
Yeah. So on the first question, so I don't want it to just overtake this with to be a Terra thing, but the community is active in governance right now to try and figure out solutions to make it more sustainable. There was a governance proposal that passed yesterday to decrease the yield by some fixed amount over a period of time where the yield reserve is going down. So I think over the next 6 months the rate will converge to some path of sustainability.
But also part of the yield is actually coming from the stake component as well, right?
Yes.
So some of it is legitimate in the sense that not incentivized. So there's like sort of a little bit of a gap, but I don't think it's as far of a gap as many see from the high level. All right, well, look, we ran out of time here, but it was nice having you all here and to chat about this. Why don't we give a round of applause for the panelists?
Thank you,
for
guys.
having us.